Welcome to Mastered, the business of music, where we dive deep into the world of music and explore the stories behind the industry. My name's Logan, and in this episode, I'm thrilled to have Tera Lee Flaman with us. With years of experience in the industry as an artist, radio host, radio promoter, and now as manager, Tera Lee brings a wealth of knowledge and insights to our conversation. We talk about when the right time to find a manager is, what both artists and managers should be looking for, and what you can expect from a music manager. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Tera Lee Flaman. We are here with Tera Lee.
Hello. I have a last name. I know a lot of people don't ever really think I do because I just go by TL, and I was Tera Lee as an artist.
Yeah, you're basically just like Cher.
I suppose a little. I'm considering hyphenating it because I think people think I've got like two last names. Anyways, it's a long, sordid story from my parents' dairy farm, and there was an amalgamation of their names, and then I became Tera Lee, and here we are. So.
Well, we're here with Tera Lee Flaman. Here we go. I'm really excited for this conversation. I think it's something a lot of people have questions about. An artist manager is kind of the first place many people kind of look at for when they're looking to bring someone onto their team. So I think there's a lot of questions that we can get answered here. So before we jump in, tell us about yourself, how you got started in the music industry, and how you got to being where you are now.
Yeah, I'm a lifer. I started as a fan, like many of us do, right? And had aspirations of the artist career. And so started as a singer-songwriter and was going down that path. Played a lot in Alberta. We had a pretty busy live act, I guess, in the late 90s, early 2000s in Western Canada, primarily in Alberta, Saskatchewan for the most part. And then right when I was finishing up my debut album, we were just finishing that up, and Abby White, who was running the radio station in Moose Jaw at the time, came out to a show, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to come do the morning show?" And I'm like, "I
What does that
don't know
mean?
how to be on the radio. I don't know. Maybe like, is this wait? There's going to be like money go into my bank account every 2 weeks. Tell me more about that." He's like, "Well, not very much." I'm like, "Oh," and I learned along the way that that was in fact the case. But
And then you had to
so
wake
I
up
was
at the
able.
ass crack of dawn.
Yeah, it was a morning show thing.
That's
So
different from the
um,
artist life.
yeah, so we negotiated kind of this interesting deal where I was still doing the artist thing kind of in tandem. And, we've seen since and prior to my radio career, lots of artists kind of do that. Jason McCoy's doing it right now. Prior to me, like Stephanie Beaumont is a way throwback
Terry
name
Clark's
that
done
did
it.
done as well. Terry Clark has done it. Clayton Bellamy did it also in Edmonton for a stint on the drive. And so I'm like, well, what's the worst can happen? It was a mat leave thing anyways. And so Moose Jaw was also like about an hour, a little over an hour from where I grew up. So it kind of like I got to kind of go back for a little bit while my grandparents were still in pretty good shape and there, and lots of friends and family still in the area. So it was kind of like, I don't know. I've always been a say yes, figure it out later kind of person. And so we did that. So I ended up about 9.5 years, I think, on morning radio. I think at that point I really realized like I'd had this artist dream, but it was more for me about always wanting to be an entertainer. And so when the radio thing kinda came along, that was just another outlet to entertain. But with that, I could really support the artists that A, I was a fan of, B, I was a friend of, and really, like, foster what was happening with our Canadian musicians and really amplify them from being behind the microphone. And so it was kind of this really unique marriage of all of the things I was passionate about. And then, I got tired of waking up. I mean, I still wake up, but just not at, like, 4 in the morning,
Yeah. It's
right?
it's not a depressing statement, it's a.
Correct. And and at that point, I made a shift into the business side of the music business and went to work for Cash Entertainment on, Gord Bamford's management team. So that was kind of the initial transition from radio. So it was songwriter, radio, and then into the business side of things. And so, since then, moved into GPS promotion, which was primarily a radio promotion business. But with that, when we started that, for me, it was like I want to do that, but I want to provide more. Like I want to get in front of the songs, like with the artists who don't have teams, but would like somebody to bounce something off of, whether it's like even like a scratch. Like should I cut this? Is this something like is this song any good? Is it worth even cutting? Because I just found like, artists didn't have any sounding boards, and oftentimes they're just kind of like out there being like, well, I think this is good and
Putting
it
something out
might
and hoping
work.
something sticks.
And there's only so much money out there, right? And so I kind of saw this place, and that was coming from my artist heart, right? Where I just want to like find a way to help, but also, do it in a way that, can be beneficial to everybody. And so when we started GPS radio promotion, it was more about like we added like some consulting with it too. And we would consult on even what songs to record, but also like branding and photos and like mixes because songs were getting sent to radio and they'd often get back like, well, the mix isn't right. And being in music meetings, someone who's worn this many hats. I've got this kind of unique perspective, and I know what it's like to be inside a music meeting and what are the things that can trigger something going, the song's not going to work, or like barely even get it listened to, and it's because like a mix isn't right. The many hats has provided a unique skill set, I think, for me, but ultimately it leads back to my artist heart. And so when we decided to do this, we kind of did the yes, we're going to work the song at radio, but we also do kind of we add these other things to provide some additional value because at that time when we started GPS, that's when the consolidation was already starting to happen and playlists were shrinking. And
Mhm.
so there's still great value in getting feedback. I believed I had great relationships from being in radio still with the people and could actually get songs listened to, whether they had space to play them or not, and get artists some real tangible feedback. And so from that, so parts of that kind of are artist management without, like, taking on a client,
Yeah.
and maybe some of those artists weren't ready or they had maybe a manager already, but a lot of them were indies at the time and maybe didn't have like, margins are so low, right? And so maybe they weren't at the place to bring on a manager yet. So, was able to help them in some of those ways. And then Haley Benedict came along. And she's undeniable, and she really was kind of everything, um, in an artist that right before that, I took the music incubator program with,
Mhm.
Canada's Music Incubator, CMI, and I took their artist manager program, and so because 'cause I'm like, "Well, maybe artist manager is a thing that we should do here also, like, maybe that's the next step." I know I wanna be in the business and, relationships and all of that are kind of like my thing. So, um, and then just after that, it was, Haley came along and we worked her single and did some of these things like that I was saying. And so, basically with that, not only did Haley get to test drive us, but we also got to test drive the relationship. And, she is incredibly talented and anybody could see that. But once you start to work together, you find out like the hustle and the dedication and the resilience and like the compatibility and the trustworthiness, which all of that stuff has to go both ways in an artist and manager relationship. And so it was really, Haley was the catalyst to us starting the management division, which has now been built out and is just a full management company with Tim and the Glory Boys, Aaron Goodvin, the Abrams, and an act out of the US, Due West. And so our fearless leader is Nancy Tunick out of Nashville, who is a incredible music industry leader in that city. And we have Jenna Robson now on the team too, and we're really building this out to a stellar roster of not just Canadian artists, there'll be Nashville artists on it, as well.
So, hearing you speak and like talking about GPS and the start of all that, obviously you wear a million hats at once, and I think most managers do. So I'm sure your day-to-day is different depending on what's happening, but what is a typical day-to-day for any artist manager?
Yeah, and it is, right? Because everything is kind of, like, cyclical and seasonal, and if you asked me in August what it was all schedules all the time for CCMAs, right?
Yeah, August and it's like September is just staying afloat.
It is, schedules, schedules, and more schedules, ultimately, and details, lots of details. But then when you go it just depends where an artist is, like, is there a song ready to go out? Are they prepping for a tour? Are they in a recording season? So yes, it can really shift, and that's probably why you have to wear a lot of different hats because the needs are ever changing. But like a general like if I'm generally speaking about it, a lot of it is project manager. Negotiator is a big thing, right? That is a big hat that you would wear. I think also no matter what season like a protector, and I don't mean like from a bodyguard standpoint. I mean
Sometimes.
like protecting their time and their space, right? And sometimes if an artist sends you to their manager, it's not because they don't wanna talk to you or don't have time for you or you're not their friend. It's just they might be in the studio and they're like, "This is why I have a person," is like, there are only so many I can't be in the studio, I can't record the songs, I can't write the songs, I can't play the shows. But, like, if this email needs tending to, or there are things that artists pong to create space for the artist to do the things that only the artist can do. And so, I mean, that's one of the big things, right? Is like, what can we peel off of the artist's plate that they don't have to do? And it's not
Mhm.
that they don't want to, or they, you know, are their life is so glamorous that they can't tend to this email, right? It's not that at all. It's about creating space for them and protecting their time because the other thing for artists is they need space and time to be able to create and be at their best and take care of, like, themselves. And so I feel like that's, like, a big thing. Lots of firefighting, an analogy I came up with early on is, like, we're kind of in a wagon. Like, we're pulling a wagon along, and, if you're on a bit of a rough road, it's gonna, like, knock some screws loose, right? Like, it's just the nature of it. You're pulling this wagon, and it's like, some things are happening. Screws are gonna come loose. We just are tightening screws all the time. It's like, well, this isn't ideal. How do we okay, we're good over here now. Oh, something else over here came loose. Well, we'll just tweak that. There, we're back in the saddle there. No big deal. Um, so like that's kind of one of the things too, right? Putting out fires or just uh, and wrangling. A lot of wrangling. There's a lot of wrangling. There's travel agency, Ida. There's um small bits of, like, finance stuff, like, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a bookkeeper, but, like, making sure that invoices got paid, making sure sometimes doing up invoices and some of that stuff, and really, like, I think one of the overarching things too is also just this, like, all of these things that are in the wind, just making sure things are followed up, things are across the finish line, this invoice got paid, that guy's been followed up with, and so I actually keep a master to-do list for each artist and really keep, like, a responsibilities, like, who's taking care of it, and, like, when it's done, it kinda just goes to the bottom because and even just the smallest things, because there's so many moving parts all the time, and, the busier an artist gets, obviously, the more there is to do, and so, that's one of the things that we've implemented here is just this master to-do list that everybody can kinda see and, and reference to see where something is kind of at in its state.
So taking things away from not away, removing things from an artist's plate so they can focus on being creative. How do you then, as the manager, make that separation for yourself for being creative support as well as business management?
I mean, I think it ebbs and flows, like, it kind of just is a little bit like sometimes the artist will be able to say, "Can you just take this?" and most of the time, like, we're in a pretty good flow over here too, like, we know who needs to kinda do what, and it's also like, "Oh, this is something I can do, so moving forward, anything like this, just toss it my way. Just pong it over here." Um, and so and then sometimes it'll just be like, "Actually, you have the details, like, you know what this thing is, I might need this to come back your way." So, this goes back to that compatibility and trust piece, right? It's like and communication, like, um, having the ability to just be really open between each other and just be or if you're at capacity, right? Like, if you're at capacity, it's just like, I can, but probably not until like next week. And that goes both ways too. It's like, I'm just like, you know, um, and that comes in seasons too.
So, what makes a great manager and artist relationship work long term?
I think trust is probably the biggest one. I mean, I think when an artist is selecting a manager, they need to make sure that there's like proof of concept, right? Like that there's experience and that they know what that there's some experience there, right? So an artist choosing, you want someone who's, what have they done in the past? Like, does that kind of like fit with where you would like to go, essentially? And then you want to look at um their industry relationships. Like, do they have a good reputation, and are they well liked? Because and can they get things done, right? Can they get someone to pick up their phone call or answer their text or, like, connect with them? Like, that's so important, the relationships that they have and the ability they have to make new relationships, not just what they have, but, like, are they out there and doing things to make new relationships too? And then I think the communication and compatibility and trust is the biggest thing for artists. Like, first is competence, like, are they competent? I guess there's 3 C's. So, competence, compatibility, and communication, right? And in the compatibility is this trustworthiness. Because, this is for me, because I was an artist and most of the time that serves me well, but I think sometimes also, like, I feel it. I'm just like, this is not just their career, this is their dream. And so you have to have this compatibility and trustworthiness to be able to talk about pretty much any and everything in order to because this business is hard. Like, this business is hard. And so we wouldn't be in it if we didn't love it, and had some resilience. Like, if I'm 30 years deep, which I am. I know, hard to believe. And I'm still in it. It's because, like, I'm a lifer. Like, I don't want to do anything else. And I'm so passionate about not just the artists we work with. Like, I'm just passionate about artists and them as people. Like, they're people. It's like being connected in a way and really believing in what each other brings to, like, the artist has to believe what I bring to them, and I gotta believe in what the artist is bringing, and that they're engaged as well.
So, switching to the artist standpoint now, when does an artist know is the right time to find a manager?
Yeah, I think it can be a little bit different for everyone. I mean, I'm gonna start again with, like, margins, right? Because margins are tight, and so I think when I think a couple of things. I think when growth kind of outpaces, like, what you can manage, like, if you're growing at a clip that you can't keep the thing on the rails, then that's when you really have to look at if you can bring somebody on. And then I think also if you just get to the next level, like if, a record label comes knocking and, we've heard this story, several times in Nashville where people often get their deal before they get their management. Um like, once you're kinda hitting a next level thing, like, you that's kind of you gotta bring it on. And really, like, the manager is gonna be your first point of contact with the rest of the team. So, your manager is gonna be back and forth with the label, and not that you don't communicate with them, but, like, the manager is the kind of go between with the agent, go between with the band leader, go between with the tour manager, right? So it's like the artist is the CEO, and then it's the manager, and everything tentacles out kind of from there. Um, and so I think it's kind of one of those two things. It's either when you're growing at a pace that you can't keep up with, and we know that there's never been more for artists to do. Like when I was an artist, we're talking 1998. There
When you
was
were
no
4.
thank you, bless. um, there was no social media. There was barely internet. Like Paul Byro was faxing me contracts. I would physically go into the office to meet with him in downtown Calgary, right? I had a pager. Logan, I had a pager.
4-year-olds have no business having a pager.
Correct. So, I am acutely aware that there has never been more for artists to do and more placed on the artist from an expectation standpoint um than ever. Like when I was playing shows and mailed CDs to the radio station, right? Like that was not there wasn't like influencer campaigns, and there wasn't all of these other like lines that needed to be fishing lines that needed to be attended to. And so I'm acutely aware for artists it's like never been like crazier. And so I also think if you're like maybe not quite there at either of these things where but you want to get there, like if you want to scale and you find someone who's like, "Oh, I actually think I can get you to this next place," and you believe that they are that person, then that's also a time to bring them on. Like if you're kind of stuck and stalled, but you find someone who's like, no, 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 no. Let's put together a pitch package and let's go to labels and I have some relationships here. And this is and again, a lot of this is like, I would test drive each other. Artists, I would test drive the manager, and managers, I would test drive the artist. It happens all the time. Like, make sure it's going to work, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you know who to trust for that in that scenario? Because there's a lot of shady people that will just take money and give a lot of empty promises and ends up being a disaster. So how do you know when
I mean, I think you have to get references, first of all, like any other job, get references. Um, and like I said, I mean, when we started working with Haley, we were working the single "Wanted You to" at radio, and we're having some really great success. And so it really was, I don't know, 10 months ish probably before we formalized any kind of like management with her. And so I think you just have to like, if you have somebody, it's like, okay, well, let's try this for like 4 or 6 months and figure out how compensation feels to everybody. And then look at formalizing it if it's working.
compensation wise, this is like a topic that I think especially in management is a bit controversial right now. Like it used to be strictly you take a percentage of gross, but there's been a shift where it's a lot of retainer, monthly fee until a certain point or whatever. Are there any like red flags that artists should be aware of when it comes to like the compensation side?
When I was an artist, it's percentage. Personally, I do think that's how it should be. But that's what makes it tricky for artists then is like if they're not bringing in enough income, it's it's hard to get somebody to come on without and do like cuz there's a lot of sweat equity on the front of new
Hmm.
artists,
There might not be a
right?
right answer to this. It might be a chicken and eggs like scenario. I don't know what's right.
I mean, and I would love actually to sit down with someone who is doing a retainer and a flat fee and just have a better understanding of what it is that they do. And I think if you're an artist that is speaking with someone who's doing a retainer model, that would be the where I would start. is I would start with, like, some references and then also, like, real tangible, um not just, like, what you will do, but what have you done for somebody while working on a retainer. I think that's the best way to I think that's how I feel about it.
On the flip side, what are some things that a manager should be looking in an artist?
It is an artist who there's a bit of a proof of concept, right? Like, they've got something going on, there's probably some heat around them in some way, whether it's, um, on streaming, on radio, or live, and then because even if one of those things is happening, that's like an indicator, right? Where you're like, "Oh, well, maybe the others would if they would be happening if they had some help." And so that would be one thing, and then I think kinda past that I mean, obviously, for me anyways, I gotta kinda be into what they're doing, like, I gotta be a fan, like, I gotta buy in, and then the hustle, they gotta have some hustle, they gotta be engaged. Um, bringing on a manager doesn't mean you just sit back. It's actually you've gotta onboard them, you've gotta be engaged, there's always bits of info that only the artist has or, it's 80 to 90% of it, the job can get done, but the artist is still the CEO. And so the artist has to be engaged and know what's going on in their business. That's just smart business. And so there's gotta be some hustle there, some engagement. Um, and I think, like, for me also, like, a passion, like, to just not quit, right? Like, to to have a dream so big that everything else that's hard and we walk through the hard with them, like, it's hard. The hard like, peaks and valleys, right? The highs are highs and the lows are lows in this business, and so someone that you wanna walk with, right? And that you wanna lift up when you need to and who can, like, also lift you up. There's also, like, you know, there's this piece where you become you become very close with these people and you care about them as though they were a friend or family, right? Like yeah, this is business, but also like we're all people and life is happening around us and we're doing life together in many ways too, right? So um they kind of just got to be awesome people for me too.
How important is it for you or for any artist and manager to maintain a relationship? I'm sure it's easy to get into a habit of just work, 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 work.
I think maybe one of the benefits of us being so connected all the time and on our phones and all the things is like I actually don't find that even though like we always try to like remind each other on our teams this is supposed to be fun.
Music is supposed to be fun.
Like, all of this is actually supposed to be fun, and it doesn't mean that there's not hard stuff and, like, days where you wanna bang your head against the wall, right? But, like, "Hey, this is supposed to be fun." And so, we have different inside jokes, we have different, like, stickers that get sent for different things in text threads, like custom stickers, right? Certain emojis, and sometimes it's just about, um just like, I'm pretty lucky, the people that I work with, like, we all know that at the other end of this thing, or this thing or whatever, that there's a human being, like, it's actually a human, and we can all work hard, but at the end of the day, like, we all care about each other as humans, and so that's really, important to me, for sure.
So we're getting close to the end here, but I want to talk a bit about for anyone who's listening who wants to be a manager or get into the world of managing an artist, where do you think a good place for them to start is?
Yeah, I think, Canada's Music Incubator, they have a wonderful program that has been led by people that have a ton of industry experience and, um, was really, really good, and it's, smaller classes, and it's a short kinda run. They're great. You could also look up Music Managers Forum, and, they might be able to, like, steer you into some resources. Like, I never went to college. I'm like school of life kinda gal. Um, and I've been really fortunate that I've had some really great mentors along the way. And having Nancy Tunick lead our management division, she's got a like you know 30 plus years also experience and worked major labels in Nashville, and just she's been a really great coach for me from like that perspective. But the other thing about CMI is like you still have all of those people in your Rolodex after. And so um, I can text questions or email questions to any of those people that were kind of leading that course and stuff at the time too, and bounce things off of. So between finding, a bit of a trusted course, because I think, you could find guru courses online all day probably, and find a couple TikTok accounts that could get you 20% of the way there. But if you have a passion for the music business and are interested in it, like seek out some sort of a course or training to kind of find out if like it is something that you have skill sets for. And there's so many different kinds of managers, there's not really one exact way to do it. Like an accountant, there's like an exact way to do that. That's not the thing with a music manager, an artist manager. So, but I think those would be a couple of resources. And then, get involved in your regional associations and start networking and see if you can like find someone who is a music manager who will maybe mentor you a little bit. Mm, You know, the thing about finding a good mentor is what in whatever you're doing is, and I've had them as an artist, I've had them as a radio disc jockey, and I've had them now as an artist manager, is like they want to bring you along. They want to share what they've learned. Um, and I mean, I think especially as women too, like we need to bring each other up and along, and we understand the same struggles that are always slightly different just because of the nature of being wired different, right? So um, yeah, I think that would be the place to start. And ultimately, what skills, like, do you need? Um, I think you need to kinda like people.
Only kinda.
Like, kinda like people. If you really like people, that's good, but bare minimum, you gotta kinda like people. You gotta be pretty organized, good with lots of details, juggling balls, putting out fires, and being okay with, like, just kinda being available. Like, you're not really ever totally off. And,
No one is in the music industry.
it's just not the way we roll. But I've found more fulfillment in artist management than I think I thought I would. I just didn't really know, too much, and, feeling pretty fulfilled in a lot of the stuff I did as an artist and in radio. I'm like, "Well, we're gonna move into the business and see what it can bring," and there's been a lot of great stuff, and so we're gonna keep on trucking, and we're excited about all the things to come. And, um I just, yeah, if you're someone passionate about artists and want to take it on, there's not enough good managers in Canada. I'll tell you that much for sure. We need more. That is a fact. Well, but Logan, how many artists come to you and say like, how many times have you asked to be a manager?
A number of times. A number of times. Yeah.
This is what I'm saying, right? Not that you wouldn't make a good one, and I understand why people ask you. But there's not a lot of places to go to get some help for artists. Yeah. So we need more in Canada. We need more good managers.
So, one final question, and this is more of a philosophical whatever. What excites you about the future of music in general?
It's always live for me. I still love going to the festival or like showing up at a sound check with like all the lights on, and they're checking the drums and it smells like an old hockey rink, and you're like, there's going to be people coming together in here tonight to enjoy a shared experience. And so I I'm excited. I think there's some new festivals brewing and building. And so I think in Canada for us, our festival season is so short, but it is such a such a way for our artists to reach a lot of fans. And so I'm excited to see us in this country expand our festivals, and hopefully that translates into more like domestic tours. And yeah, I'm hopeful that we see the live side of the business kind of grow again. It took a hit in COVID, obviously, and then had a bit of a bounce back. And so I just would like to see it not just bounce back, but like grow. And I think it's going to. And ultimately what I know as an artist manager is artists are always at their best when they're out playing shows. Like, they're the happiest, it's like a kid in a candy store, right? Like, that's so the more shows they can play, just the better they are at everything else they do.
Sounds like a great place to end this. My voice is doing weird things.
It's okay.
Thank you so much, Tera Lee Flaman. The full name.
Full name, Tera Lee Flaman.
This is Mastered by Front Porch Music. Join Logan Miller and Jenna Weiser, the hosts of CCMA-nominated On the Porch with Front Porch Music, for this mini-series podcast offering crash courses on the ins and outs of the music industry. Expert guests from across the Canadian music landscape sit down with Jenna and Logan to discuss labels, getting your shows booked, landing festival slots, A&R, social media, and so much more. Mastered by Front Porch Music is produced by Logan Miller, Jenna Weiser, and Jason Saunders. The theme song for this podcast was written, produced, and performed by Keith Hunt.